that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'd like to call the order the
Recording
June
in
7th.
progress.
Oh, I'd like to call the order the June 7th meeting of the Development Review Commission. Kat, can you please call the roll?
Olson,
Here.
Berardi,
Here.
Smith,
Here.
Frankel,
Here.
Silent,
Present.
Arthur,
Here.
and Jeff Shear is absent this evening.
Correct. First up on our agenda is the minutes of our May 17th, 2021 meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes, and do I hear any comments, corrections, or any motions?
I move to approve the minutes of the May 17th, 2021 meeting as submitted.
Second.
Yeah, please call the roll.
Olson,
Yes.
Berardi,
Yes.
Smith,
Abstain.
Frankel,
Yes.
Silent,
Yes.
Arthur.
Yes.
Okay. Next up, we have some findings. It's for LU 20-0032, an appeal of the staff decision to approve the following residential infill design variances in order to construct an addition onto an existing single-family dwelling. It included reduce the 25-foot front yard setback from Sarah Hill Lane to 10 feet and allow the garage to be located closer to the street on Sarah Hill Lane than the dwelling. The site is located at 17760 Lake Haven Drive. The staff coordinator is and was Evan Franstead, senior planner. Has anybody had a chance to review the findings and any corrections for those, or any other comments or any motions?
Before you adopt the findings, Mr. Chair, I'm just checking. This also had an order regarding evidentiary rulings, my recollection, and that's what I see in the file. So the commission I would recommend the commission adopt the order regarding the evidence in the record to formalize that, then adopt the findings.
Well, are we adopting the evidence in the record or the opinions about what constitutes evidence in the record?
What staff prepared in LU 20032 is the commission made various rulings, there were numerous objections, and the commission made rulings on each of those objections. And those were prepared in a document called Orders on Objections to Evidence. So the question is whether those orders accurately reflect the majority of the commission with regard to each specific order. Oh. And if I can read your question between the lines, Chair Polson, you disagreed with you were in a minority position on one of the orders, as I recall, and that is reflected in the minutes, reflected in the order. And so my recommendation would be, if you concur that you were in a minority position and it accurately states your position there, that you would go ahead and vote in favor of the order because it accurately reflects all that, rather than opposing. You didn't oppose the rest of the orders. See, that's the point.
So, right. Okay. All right. Well, so we need a motion to approve the findings as written, and the orders for the evidentiary orders.
Right, the objection, yes, the orders on the objection to evidence, and I'd recommend you make that 2 motions because you may find that you agree with all of the you may have objections to the evidence, but not ultimately to the decision. If all that evidence comes in per the decision of the commission, if that's the record before the commission, then you may agree with that findings.
I see.
So I would take the order first, the orders on objections to evidence first, and then the findings.
Okay, well, does anybody want to make a motion about the orders for the evidence?
I'll make a motion is it to approve the orders, the evidentiary orders?
Yes, that's fine.
Make a motion to approve the evidentiary orders.
I second.
Okay, Kat?
Olson,
Yes.
Girardi,
Yes.
Smith,
Abstain.
Frankel,
Yes.
Silent,
Yes.
Arthur.
Yes.
Okay, now we're looking for a motion to adopt the findings for LU 20-0032.
I'll move to approve those findings as stated.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Colson,
Yes.
Girardi,
Yes.
Smith,
Abstain.
Frankel,
Yes.
Silent,
Yes.
Arthur.
Yes.
Okay. Next on the agenda, we have a public hearing. This is for LU 21-0011, a request for approval of the following. Development review permit for a 15-unit multifamily building in the downtown redevelopment district. A minor variance to maximum retaining wall height and removal of 3 trees. The site is located at 21 D Avenue. The staff coordinator is Evan Franstead, senior planner. Evan, do you want to initiate this?
Just
Yes, I
real
will.
quick, Chair, do we have a counselor update, city council update at all?
No, I didn't see that on the agenda today.
I didn't either. I just was curious if we had one. I know we usually start with that. I just want to make sure we didn't miss something.
No, we didn't. Well, if there was a counselor here, I'd love to hear from them. Okay. So, Evan?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This land use request is considered based on the applicable criteria and standards. The staff report lists that criteria and standards identified by staff applicable to the request. It was available online. You must identify any additional criteria you believe applies. Testimony and evidence must be directed towards the applicable criteria. Please specifically identify to the commission the criteria or standards you are addressing so the commission may consider your testimony in relation to the criteria or standards that you are addressing. If you do not identify the criteria or standards you're addressing, the commission is not obliged to guess which standards or criteria you're testifying about and may not consider your testimony in its decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the commission and parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes raising the issue to the City Council and the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. The failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with specificity to allow this commission to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. The public hearing process is as follows. There'll be a presentation by staff, then testimony by the applicant up to 20 minutes, then testimony by parties in support of the application, followed by testimony by parties opposed to the application, and finally testimony by those neither for nor against the application. Individuals will be allowed up to 5 minutes. Any person in attendance may cede his or her time for testimony to another person except to the applicant, but in no case shall any person's testimony be increased to greater than 10 minutes. Recognized neighborhood associations, homeowner associations, government or government agencies, or other incorporated public interest organizations will be allowed up to 10 minutes. Then applicant rebuttal up to 5 minutes, and then commission deliberation, including a statement to the applicant by the commission of any proposed conditions of approval different than contained in the staff report, and the applicant's response to the commission's conditions of approval proposed following commission deliberation. Now, since it's an electronic meeting, let me read this part here, open up here. Oh, come on, how can Adobe stop working now? 1 minute. Okay. Following testimony by all persons that have been signed up to speak in the applicant's rebuttal, I will ask whether any person requests a continuance of the hearing in order to submit any additional evidence or testimony. You may request a continuance by, if you're already on the meeting virtually and testifying, then at the end of your testimony, you may request a continuance. Or at the conclusion of all testimony, we'll ask if anybody requests a continuance. At that time, unmute and request a continuance. And if you're not yet in the meeting, you may contact Kat Kluge, K-L-U-G-E. That's K-K-L-U-G-E at lakeoswego.city or 503-635-0286. I'll read that again. That's K Kluge, K-K-L-U-G-E at lakeoswego.city, 503-635-0286. And prior to my request, leave your name and contact information with the secretary in order to request the continuance. Those time limits do not include time spent responding to questions by the commission. We close this here. Testimony by attorneys, representatives, and witnesses on behalf of or which are part of the presentation by person shall be counted within that person's time limit. It is assumed that persons are testifying on their own behalf unless they expressly identify the recognized neighborhood association, homeowner association, government or government agency, or other incorporated public interest organization they are representing. A potential conflict of interest declared on behalf of each of the DRC members to the extent of their business or employment, which each will identify. Unless declared otherwise, the respective DRC member does not have a known present or anticipated future business relationship with the project or the applicant. It is possible that a future business relationship could arise in the initiation, design, construction, or maintenance of the project through either the employment or business of the DRC member personally or through relatives defined in ORS 244-020. All right, at this point, I would ask the commission to declare whether you have had any ex parte contacts, including a site visit, any bias on the application, any financial conflicts of interest, and please state your business or employment. Chair Polson, if you'll make your first declaration and then poll the rest of the commission members.
Sure. My name is David Polson. I'm a civil engineer. I have not visited the site, but in the interest of this full disclosure, I do own a couple properties up on D Avenue on the corner of D and 3rd Street, which is about 3 blocks away. I've had no ex parte contact. I have no financial conflicts of interest, and I have no biases. Then we'll go to Commissioner Silent.
Excuse me, my name is Mark Silent. I'm a local business owner. I've had no ex parte contacts. I've not made a site visit. I have no bias and I have no financial conflict.
Commissioner Smith.
My name is Kirk Smith. I'm an attorney with the law firm Buckhalter, Ader Wynn. The city provided me with a list of parties, including the applicant and the applicant's consultants. I ran those names through our conflict system and determined I do not have a conflict. I will, in the interest of full disclosure, mention that OTEC is one of the consultants for the applicant, and OTEC is a client of Buckhalter, Ader Wynn. Do not have any bias, however. I've not visited the site. I have no other ex parte contacts, and I have no additional financial conflict of interest.
Okay, Commissioner Berardi.
Hi, my name is Craig Berardi. I'm a financial management consultant. I have not visited the site. I have no ex parte contacts, no bias, and no financial conflicts.
Okay, Commissioner Arthur.
Good evening. I'm Randy Arthur. I'm an of-counsel attorney at the Portland office of Bullivan Hauser Bailey, PC. I also ran a conflicts check of names provided to me by the city for this hearing. And I would just note that OTAC is listed as a party with interests adverse to one of our clients, though I have no financial benefit from that matter and no involvement in it. I have not made a site visit. I've had no ex parte contacts and have no financial interest or bias in this matter.
Okay, and finally, Commissioner Frankel.
Jason Franco, I'm actually a digital project manager with KeyBank. I have not done a site visit. I have no other ex parte contact, no financial conflict, and no bias.
Great, thank you.
Right. Is there any challenge? Oh, sorry.
No, go
Is there
ahead.
any challenge? Is there any challenge to commissioners' right to consider the application? Hearing none, I'd ask for Senior Planner Evan Franstead for the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Boone and commissioners. Before I begin my summary of the staff report, I would like to well, first share my screen and point out, so I sent a memo around 5 o'clock today to submit 2 documents that were written testimony submitted after the publication of the staff report on May 28th. Those exhibits are G201 and G202, both in opposition of the application. Listed a little bit of analysis of the concerns raised, which include construction impacts, geological impacts, and a number of stories. So that's all in the memo there. Now for my presentation. There we go. So the applicant is requesting approval of the following: development and review permit for a new 15-unit multifamily building in the downtown redevelopment district, minor variance to maximum retaining wall height, and removal of 3 trees. The site consists of 2 tax lots 2000, 2001, and the west portion of a 3rd tax lot, 1801. Tax lots 1801 and 2001 are zoned East End commercial. Tax lot 2000 is zoned R0 for residential high density. So that's right there. That helps. So these are the 3 tax lots. Abutting properties to the north, northwest, and west are zoned R0 and developed with multiple family residential. The properties to the east and south are zoned EC and developed with commercial buildings that include car wash and restaurants. That's over here. This is the existing features survey that was submitted by the applicant. The site has frontage on D Avenue, local street, and is vacant except for a paved asphalt parking area that connects to the car wash. So the car wash parking lot comes up here, and this is part of the paved area on the site. The site slopes significantly from the west to east at 127 feet in elevation along the west lot line to 100 feet at the east lot line. The applicants will be required to consolidate tax lots 2000 and 2001, these 2 tax lots, into one development and receive approval of lot line adjustment to move the lot line between lot 1801 and the consolidated lots. And that's what they're showing here, this 20 feet. This will be the new property line. So that's recommended condition of approval A1 and A2. For the site plan, the proposed building is set back 10 feet from the north, east, and west lot lines and 0 feet from the south lot line along D Avenue in compliance with the R0 and EC zone dimensional standards. The site plan shows retaining walls and planters located to the east and west of the building footprint. So those are along here, different tiers here, and we'll get into that in more detail. A courtyard is proposed in this building notch right here. The driveway to the parking garage floor area is from D Avenue is located right here. There is an existing sidewalk along the south side of D Avenue, as shown here. The applicants are proposing a new sidewalk along the site frontage of D Avenue, as shown here. Condition of approval A4 requires the applicant to construct a new 5-foot sidewalk along the entire site frontage and then on down to State Street in order to mitigate the increased traffic, bike, and pedestrian trips that will be created by this development. And here's the grading plan. So the entire surface area of the site is proposed for development or grading. This shows new grading and building footprint and retaining walls. So the retaining walls are these areas here with it's kind of like almost a dashed line. So significant retaining walls, tiered retaining walls on the east and west of the building. The site is identified as potential slide area on the city's inventory of weak soils and potential slide hazard map. The applicant submitted a geotechnical report, which evaluated the subsurface conditions of the site and provides geotechnical recommendations for site development. Staff finds that because the geotechnical report did not find undisturbed slopes, the grading limitations in each slope category for the hillside protection standards are not applicable. The geotechnical report did not indicate any potential slide areas and indicates that the proposed development is geotechnically feasible, provided that the recommendations of the report are incorporated into the design and construction of the project. The recommended condition of approval A3 requires a final geotechnical report based on the final grading and building plans to be submitted with the building permit application. The applicant is requesting a minor variance to allow retaining walls from 4 feet to 11 feet in height in the western portion of the site and from 4 feet to 9 feet in height along the eastern portion of the site due to the existing steep slopes and public right-of-way improvements. The increased height of the proposed retaining walls will not be detrimental to public health or safety, as the walls will not be located in a vision clearance for vehicles entering or exit the site from D Avenue. Staff finds that the visual impacts of the retaining wall will not be material injurious to the adjacent properties due to the layered landscaping consisting of a mix of shrubs and trees between the walls along the base of the building and proposed fence and distance from the properties to the south. As for negative impacts to the streetscape, the majority of the retaining walls are oriented perpendicular to D Street, which lessens the visual impacts along the street. The retaining walls will be located 17 feet back at the closest point from the sidewalk along D. So that is shown here. So the closest ones are quite a ways back from the sidewalk. Staff finds that there will be little or no negative impact on the streetscape due to the orientation of the walls, sufficient distance and landscaping between the walls and sidewalk travel area along D Avenue. Staff finds that the materials submitted proposed variance to the maximum height of retaining walls meets the minor variance criteria and can be approved. And here's the utility plan. So this plan shows connections to water, sanitary sewer, private utilities. The proposed stormwater management system includes flow-through planters along the east and west sides of the building. Based upon the preliminary stormwater design submitted to demonstrate the feasibility of a final stormwater design complying with the Stormwater Management Code, staff finds the preliminary stormwater design is feasible as submitted. And here's the front elevation rendering submitted by the applicant. So this is shown from D Avenue. You're looking north. The proposed building is 4 stories plus a parking level. The structure's primary entrance faces D Avenue and connects to a new sidewalk along the site's frontage. There are 2 secondary entrances along the west facade that access the courtyard, which I'll show you. This is the elevation plan. Before I do that, let's go back here and just talk about the building elements. The architectural elements and massing forms of the arts and crafts style are integrated into the design as demonstrated by the following. You have a pitched gable roof with intersecting gables, prominent masonry chimneys clad in stone veneer, a rectangular and asymmetrical building composition with roof, windows, and porch projections, casement and sash windows with small panes, group configurations, and appropriate trim molding, and a combination of stone veneer and horizontal fiber cement siding with use of board and batten as support accents. The plans show that predominantly ground floor materials include stone veneer and glass. The upper floors include a combination of horizontal fiber siding, board siding, and vertical fiber cement board and batten siding, and glass windows create a heavier appearance of masonry base with a lighter appearance of wood and glass as part of the upper stories. The roof includes composition asphalt shingles that simulate shake shingles. The proposed window moldings, casings, and other trim elements reflect the Lake Oswego arts and crafts style. Overall, staff finds the proposed design is consistent with the Lake Oswego arts and crafts style. And here's the front elevation plan as a one-dimensional. This shows the overall height in different segments. As you can see, the tallest point of the structure is 60 feet, and there's some sections that are less than that. The maximum height is 60 feet for the EC zone. They would be meeting that. So this is the east elevation rendering, which shows in more detail, it's more three-dimensional, the retaining walls that are tiered, the planters. So you have two different tiered sections here, which are kind of lost in elevation plans with the landscaping. And then there's a flatter roof here area. That's in the R0 zone, which I'll talk more about. This shows more of the design in arts and crafts style. This is the west building elevation. This shows the height as well. So it's 60 feet down to the courtyard, and then it kind of steps up here as the grade increases in height. So the tallest point is 60 feet, and then it decreases. The height here is about 36.5 feet as the grade increases. And then it steps down where this is the R0 portion of the site. So here's from the north elevation rendering, where it steps down to a three-story part of the structure. So that's the northern portion of the building that's located in the R0 zone. It's 3 stories at 35 feet in height. Includes a flat roof, utilizes fiber cement vertical siding, stone veneer, fiberglass clad windows, and glass railings on the balconies. As far as the general building design standards for the R0 zone, staff finds that the proposed materials are complementary to the overall architectural style and to nearby multifamily buildings to the north and west, which utilize masonry, wood, and glass windows. And here's the floor plans, starting with the P1 floor, which is parking floor. So the applicants are proposing to provide 23 normal parking spaces, in underground parking spaces, which exceeds the parking requirement of 18 spaces. Should mention, as I mentioned in the staff report, that they show stackers here. So each one of these shows 2 parking spaces. It has numbers for 1 and 2, 3 and 4. The stackers don't count towards the parking requirement. They can certainly do it, but that's not included in overall parking to meet the maximum parking requirement standard. So when I say they have 23, it's 23 normal parking spaces, not including the stackers. Visitor parking is not shown on the parking plan here. This is to ensure that visitors just like will have available parking. Staff is recommending a condition of approval A3 that requires the applicants to submit a plan to illustrate the location of 5 common visitor parking spaces in the parking garage that shall not be reserved for specific units. So it doesn't say they have to be designated as visitor parking, but that they cannot be assigned to a unit. I'm going to run through the other floor plans here. So you can see unit 1 here is on the lower level there. And this is the main level. So the front entrance is right here. So it's off of D Avenue. And then there's 2 secondary entrances back here so that people can walk around to the courtyard area and access the lobby that way, or this amenity room, and then the central corridor here where there's the 4 units. And these are all 2-bedroom apartments. So the second floor plan shows kind of more of the same, more apartments. Same as the third. And then they get into the roof plan. That's where the mechanical equipment will be. It shows a window well. It's kind of like a mechanical well where there's roofs are above it, which will screen the mechanical equipment, which I'll talk more about. There's a corridor up here, and there's some amenity rooms that they don't have designated for anything as of this time, and there's a roof deck. And this is the landscaping plan. So the landscape plan shows that the 17.7% of the site in the DRD portion of the site is landscaped, is visible from the ground. The portion of the R0, which is right here, this is the R0 portion of the site, contains 50.23% of open landscaping and open space and landscaping. The landscaping plan shows that the applicants propose a variety of trees and shrubs, normal and grassing in the overall landscaping. There, for the DRD standards, for street furniture, there's a bench right here. There's public art, a concrete pad where they can put public art right there. Paved brick entryway right there. They'll have espaliers along this elevation, the east elevation and the south elevation. The street light that's required by DRD standards is right here by the sidewalk. And there's 2 street trees plus the existing tree right here that will be saved. And for the tree removal plan, the applicants are proposing, well, first off, there are 5 trees on the site. And this includes tree number 1, which is on the property line right here, that they are going to retain. They're requesting to remove 3 trees. So that's trees 2, right here in the middle of the site, 4 down here in the northeast corner, and 5 also in the northeast corner. They're going to retain what tree number 3 is off-site. It's in the car wash, caddy car wash site. And then they're going to remove tree 6, which is an invasive tree removal permit, which is separate from this application. It's a simple over-the-counter permit. They're protecting the adjacent tree number 7. So just those 3 trees. The trees proposed for removal will not have a significant negative impact on erosion, soil stability, or flow of surface water because all on-site runoff will be managed with an erosion control permit. Trees 1, 3, and 7 will also help provide erosion control and soil stability. No nearby trees will experience wind throw impacts because the trees proposed for removal are relatively isolated from the trees that will remain. Of the 3 trees, tree number 2 is less than 15 inches in diameter, and the other 2 trees, trees 4 and 5, are 38-inch and 50-inch big leaf maples. Are larger than 15 inches in diameter, but they are found to be in poor health and structural condition by a certified arborist. Therefore, none of the trees are considered significant trees. Staff finds that the removal of the trees will not alter the treed skyline. The trees are not located to act as a screen between the R0 portion of the property and a budding EC zone or between dissimilar residential zones. The removal of the trees will not have a significant negative impact on the character or aesthetics of the neighborhood. Staff concludes that the proposed tree removal complies with the applicable criteria.
Evan, can I interrupt for just a second? You said
Sure.
Tree number 3 was the big leaf maple, the 50-inch big leaf maple?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that's not correct? It's tree 4 and 5.
4 and 5. Okay. All right. I just wanted to get some clarity there. So
Yeah. So they're removing trees 2, 4, and 5. If I
Okay.
said 3, that's incorrect.
Okay.
Well, that saves us for the meeting minutes too. I don't have to correct it then. So condition of approval B6 requires the applicant to submit a final mitigation plan that shows at least 3 native mitigation trees. And in conclusion, staff recommends approval subject to conditions of approval. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for staff?
Commissioner, I have a couple. Thanks, Evan, that was great. Did you say prior to anything being built that the city had that marked as a land or soil instability, or what was you were mentioning what it was designated prior to the development proposal?
Yeah, our maps show it as a slide area.
And now it's not a slide area.
It shows it as a potential slide area, and then it is up to the applicant to provide a geotechnical report to determine if indeed there are slide areas on the site. And in addition, as Senior Planner Franstead mentioned, if the slopes on the site that are in excess of 12% are previously disturbed slopes, as they are on this site, there was grading done. There was also a concrete pad, I believe, on a portion of the site. Then the grading limitations do not apply to slopes that have been previously disturbed.
Okay. Thank you. And then I noticed what was missing was any views from State Street or some type of presentation of the height compared to the adjacent neighboring buildings. Is that, I know the last presentation we had did that very visually, presented that. Is there any reason those were left out? And can you tell me about the height difference between the buildings next to it and what, any variances?
Well, the applicant is required to show that they comply with maximum height, number of stories, which they do, and they did show. It's really up to them if they want to show comparative of the adjacent buildings, which they chose not to. I guess after their presentation, you could certainly ask them why they didn't provide those. But we do not do a comparative analysis of what the adjacent buildings are with the proposed buildings. It's just maximum overall height, which is 60 feet.
And then I think that the question is maybe directed towards, was there a requirement to preserve a viewscape by that property to the west?
There's not a requirement.
Okay.
Okay. That's it. Thanks.
So yeah. Okay. Questions? None?
No, I have a question. I had my hand raised here.
We're just talking to commissioners right now. I'm just seeking questions from commissioners. Will be a time for public testimony after we've been to the staff report and we've heard the applicant, and then.
So the 5 minutes we get includes questions?
Yes.
Okay, because you brought up new
The
information.
5 minutes, excuse me, the 5 minutes does not include questions. So if you're asked a question by the commissioners, that will not count towards your time. But if you ask questions, I guess that would be part of your testimony.
Okay.
I'm just really trying to survey the other commissioners if they have any questions for the staff at this point. Anybody else? I've got a couple questions. The geotechnical report did not have the benefit of any retaining wall designs or any details of what the applicant was proposing in terms of actual structures. And they said in that geotechnical report, it said, once I've seen it, we can further refine it. But did I read that correctly? That there's a follow-up geotechnical analysis after the final design has been submitted?
It's my understanding that they did have a design and the proposed building design, but they wanted a final geotechnical report in case anything changed. That's the way I read it. I think they did have the design of the grading.
All right, well, I'll have to find that in there and I'll bring that back up later.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just go ahead and listen to the applicant presentation now.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Brady. I'm a senior planner with OTAC. Appreciate you taking the time this evening to listen to our applicant presentation and also to review our project. I wanted to introduce first our team that is here to provide information and to answer questions to the best of our ability. Again, myself, I'm Kevin Brady. I'm a senior planner with OTAC, and I have with me Gary Reddick, who is the lead architect on the project. We also have Michael Robinson, who is our counsel for the project, our land use attorney. We have Andrew Clark, who is the developer with Hugh Development. And we also have Bill Brannon, who is our civil engineer. So Gary is going to do a quick presentation on the proposal, but before he gets started on that, I just wanted to maybe run through kind of the journey that we've gone through on this. You know, we started off with a flat roof modernist approach to this site that we were all very excited about. And we went to our first pre-app and, you know, received the typical feedback at the pre-app, but not, you know, resounding support for a flat roof design. We went to the neighborhood representatives to get some feedback from them. We went back to a second pre-app and was still basically finding the same sort of response in terms of whether or not a flat roof modernist design was really going to work for the Lake Oswego style, and would also include height variances. So, you know, we listened to that, and we pivoted in a very strong way, and we went to a completely different design with a sloped roof, arts and crafts style, which is what you see in front of you today. We went to the neighborhood meeting, and we did receive some reception towards that design. It's been refined since then, based on further conversations with the neighborhood representatives and with city staff, to the point where we've refined, we think, a project that complies substantially with all of the criteria and standards that are relevant to this project and this site. So we have reviewed thoroughly the staff report, the findings and the conditions of approval, and feel that we are in full agreement with those. And with that, I'd just like to hand it over to Gary Reddick, who's going to run through some elements of the project. I'm going to share my screen here for Gary.
While you're doing that, Evan Boone here, I'm just going to let you know when you have 1 minute remaining. I'll do that orally.
Yeah, we only have 1 minute left in our presentation.
No. When the time comes.
Oh, okay.
I will let you know you have 1 minute left.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Can you guys see that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
That's up now. That's up now. Yeah.
Well, it's good to see all of you again. Kevin and I had the privilege of presenting in front of you a few months ago on a similar scale project on 4th Avenue. You've already seen these images that are on the screen, so I'm not going to be showing you anything different tonight than what you've already seen. And but I thought it might be interesting to take a couple of minutes to give you a little glimpse of the backstory. And Kevin alluded to that a few minutes ago, and we probably went through 6 or 8 conceptual iterations to get to the presentation that you see tonight. From day one, and you all know this, it was a very challenging site. I mean, architects can get very excited about that, but it was very challenging, and you know, internally here, the opportunity was both thrilling and daunting as we started to try to make architecture, you know, fit on that slope. You all know how difficult the site is. I think you've had some previous attempts for developers to build something here. And there was another thing on day one, and it has lasted for the entirety of the time we've been working on this, and that is to not settle for anything but a beautiful building that makes a clear statement about design in Lake Oswego. And in part where this comes from is just how prominent this site is. It was not that we needed it any more amplification, but it was brought to our attention by city staff, and it's a rather unique piece of property in all of Lake Oswego, not just for its slope, but for its prominence both to the east and to the south. It's in a way a gateway building when you're coming down Highway 43 and come past the trees and you look up the hill. It'll be the first thing they see. I've already said that the scheme you're looking at tonight in no way resembles the earlier concepts. And the members of the city planning staff tonight know what I'm referencing. As a collective design team, we've worked extremely closely with Hugh Development. And throughout this entire process, we were all asking, and in particular, Andrew Clark was asking, how can we make it better? Is there anything that we can be doing along the way to make this project better? And I want to acknowledge that the name of this project, the Francis, is actually being named after his mother. So his mother is the namesake for the project. Some of you know I've had a couple of other opportunities to contribute to the built environment in Lake Oswego. I've always really felt it was a privilege to work in that community. There aren't a lot of design opportunities and projects that happen. The rigor that takes place with how you look at design is in a way almost like no other. And I've always appreciated that. And it's also been a privilege to work alongside Hugh Development and the care that they take with the way and how they decide to design and build a building. I'm only going to keep up these three images that you've seen here. You've seen the other sides of the building already this evening. But what I quickly want to go down through in the minute or so that I have left is to list quickly the characteristics of the arts and crafts style that we applied to this design. And you can find each of these elements as I'm going down them if you look closely at the building. Recesses, projections, complex roof forms, exterior cladding materials, color changes, casement and sash windows with small window panes, prominent chimneys, a strong base, in this case stone, and a building that responds to and acknowledges its site. It's like it's been tailor-made to this sloping site, and that's why it steps and cascades down to the east. And it makes finally a very strong presentation to the street and the pedestrian experience. In many ways, I think of this as a public building, though it's being built for private residences. It has a strong obligation to views from off the site, looking west from 43rd and all of the area on D looking out towards the street. And not being shown tonight are several places where we're going to be putting art installations in, and in addition to the garage door is being crafted as an art piece, and the gate that goes back to the courtyard on the west side is also being built in a foundry by an artist. So I'll stop there. I think I'd certainly love to be available to answer any questions or clarifications that come up in the balance of your consideration.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Or Kevin or any other part of the applicant's attendees? Randy?
Thanks. I just wanted to ask, could you comment on what is the intended use of the exterior courtyard on the west side of the building?
Yeah, that area is going to be for the residents. It'll be an outdoor area. Gary, you can probably more articulate better than I can about what that area will be used for, but that's primarily what it'll be used for is an outdoor, courtyard area for residents.
On the back of the building.
Yeah, that's right.
It does get late afternoon sun into it. We have 4 residences that look down on it as an amenity and have what's unique about the 4 residences on the west side of the building is that they have windows on 3 sides, which is quite different than the ones that just face the east. So it was seen both as an amenity for those units, but a gathering, we really have a series of gathering places in the building. It's been, of all the projects I've worked on, I think it has more amenity space per square foot of anything. And so the entry, what we're calling the lobby, though it's also a gallery and a gathering space with a fireplace and a grand piano, about 15 feet of the northern wall slides open to include that courtyard. So we see a lot of gatherings, in the ground floor of this building. Perhaps even some of them occasionally public activities by invitation.
Thank you.
Any others? My questions are, did you bring your geotechnical engineer with you tonight?
We did not, Vice Chair. We weren't sure that was going to be any potential issue. We do have our civil engineer, Bill Brannon, that might be able to address some of your questions or concerns. I think one of the things that you alluded to earlier was whether or not there was going to be an additional, whether or not we proposed specific retaining walls, and structural design, and whether or not the geotech report addressed that. And I think our intention is that will be addressed again as part of building permit. And that will potentially mean a revised geotech report as part of the building permit review.
Well, I think some of the comments we're going to hear tonight is going to be a concern about whether or not the whole process of building this new project will introduce any geotechnical slide potentials or impacts to adjacent properties, particularly the one above.
Sure.
And so, to have a geotechnical engineer there to address those would be something I think that they'd want. Also, if I could, Evan, let me ask you a question. It says in the staff report that this project requires a geological engineer to address these slope stability issues. And what I think all I've seen is a geotechnical engineering report, which is a different animal than a geological engineer. Anything to say about that, or was that ever brought up?
That was not brought up. The same geotechnical reports have been used by that company in other previous land use applications on those standards. It's not something that I think we discriminate.
Well, no, there is a difference between those professions, and in the staff report, it did say that in the requirement that it would need to be reviewed by a geological engineer. So with the issue that it was identified as a slope hazard, and that the fact we have borings that only go down 10 feet at max, it seems to me you'd want somebody that can look at it from a geological point of view for anything below that. But
Mr. Chair,
yes.
Evan Boone here. Under the standard 500606-1, excuse me, let me start over. 5006-006-2, that's hillside protection. The standards for approval, subsection D, the development prohibited, subsection III, and then 1 says you can't develop in an area where there is an actual or field investigation confirms the existence of severe landslide hazard. There's an exception to that, subsection 2, where and this is really what my point is, this is the criteria, a licensed geotechnical engineer, registered civil engineer experienced in soils engineering, or licensed engineering geologist shall certify the methods of rendering a known hazard safe, a site safe for construction or feasible for a given site. So that's the requirement, I think, under the code relative to the question, that any one of those 3 could submit such a report.
I'll do my best to bring up the provision in the staff report
okay.
As we go through tonight. And there is well, now let's just move on. Okay, so no other questions from the commissioners.
Correct.
Okay. We're ready to listen to any public testimony. Should I start out with all those in favor of the proposal? I understand that there were none. And then I have a list here of people that want to speak against the proposal. And then I'll follow up and see if there's anybody left that wants to speak either in favor or against. So first up, I'll just call them in order here. It'll be Chris and Karen.
Vice Chair Polson.
Yes, sir.
There appears to be somebody's waving their hand from the public who may be in favor.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that though.
It's Carol Ockert from the first edition Forest Hills Neighborhood Association.
Okay, is he in favor? Is she signed up? Is Karen signed up?
Yes.
As a yes.
Yes, Chair. Vice Chair Paulson, I'm signed up to speak for the Neighborhood Association in favor of the project.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, and it's very nice to be here tonight to participate in this DRC hearing for LU 21-0011. What we on the Fan Forest Hills Board have been referring to for the last 7 months as the D Avenue project. Jim Bolland and I participated in pre-application meetings for 2 other project possibilities for this site several years ago that did not move forward. The current proposal for a condominium development that is before you tonight reflects months of participation and collaboration to get to a design that fits with Lake Oswego code and the Fan Forest Hills neighborhood, including the major portion of the site that is in the EC zone. As you may know, neighborhood associations are invited to participate in project pre-application meetings, where staff looks at preliminary concepts for a site, lays out code that may be relevant, and fields questions from the developers. At the end of the meetings, staff always invites comment from the 2 neighborhood representatives. That is my moment, time and again, to encourage developers to work collaboratively with our neighborhood board from the beginning as they explore and form up their project. The D Avenue team truly took that offer at face value. They immediately reached out. Jim Bolland, the Fan Forest Hills Vice Chair, and myself met with the project team a number of times over the next 7 months as they were working to align potential designs and city codes with a project that would be a good neighborhood fit. The project team wanted to know what would be important to the neighborhood and what we would see as a functional, quality project. Fan Forest Hills typically focuses on safe traffic flow, sufficient parking, height code compliance, responsible tree retention, and good design, quality, and fit. The D Avenue project team was inclusive and responsive to comments. The D Avenue project was first noticed on the Fan Forest Hills December agenda posted on our Google website. In addition to the required neighborhood meeting, the D Avenue project was on the Fan Forest Hills agenda 6 of the last 7 months. Neighbors from surrounding properties attended the neighborhood meeting and 2 of our board meetings, asking questions and participating in the discussions. This is a robust public process that has brought us to the strong design here before you tonight. The 555 second building in the EC zone is much admired, and this design compares much to the same sense of style. The Fan Forest Hills Board supports LU 21-0011 with the conditions that staff has outlined in tonight's staff report. We especially note attention to items 3, A, and C with respect to landscaping and street trees. Item 3D, noting the delineation of common visitor parking spaces not reserved for specific units. Items 4, A, B, and C that direct the street frontage of sidewalk improvements to be completed from the site down to State Street. And item 9, the tree compliance plan. We appreciate retention of the 2 large cedars at the sides of the site, support the removal of the trees as requested in the plan, and look to appropriate on-site mitigation. Our chair and head of our tree committee, Sharon Gustafson, is available for consultation on preferred trees. I appreciate the diligent work that has gone into the preparation of the staff report, and I truly appreciate this DRC process. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody any questions for Carol from the commission?
I have questions for Carol.
From the commission.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Carol. Now we can go on. Anybody else want to speak in favor of the proposal? Got everybody here. I got a lot of 2 screens I got to pan through. Okay, hearing none. Now we'll go to the testimony in opposition. And first up, I had Chris and Karen Rocky. Are they here tonight? Chris and Karen? I see Chris. And Chris, you're on mute. And probably not paying attention. All right, so let's go on. Maybe he'll come back. The next up would be Deborah Grothy. Sorry about not pronouncing your name correctly. Karen, Deborah, are you with us? No. I have the right thing here. These are people who signed up to testify for LU 21-0011. All right. Next one up is Carol O'Kurt. Carol.
You spoke in favor.
Was that in favor? Okay. All right. Then next one would be Miranda Chang. And there's Miranda. Miranda, are you with us? And you're on mute. If anybody wants to testify for or against, or neither for nor against, you can send Kluge Cat a quick email. I think would be the right procedure. And then she'll get you on the list. I'll just keep going until someone wants to speak. Next one up I have is Harold Pakula. Harold?
That would be me.
Okay, very good. Hi, Harold.
First of all, I want to say that the person from the neighborhood association that is for the project did not include.
Can we go ahead and state the address?
I'm sorry?
Go ahead. If you'd go ahead and state your address, please, first for the record, and then I'll start your time.
750 First Street, number 17.
Okay. And at 1 minute prior to your time at 5 minutes, I'll interrupt and let you know you got 1 minute left. Thank you. Go ahead.
So anyhow, the neighborhood association did not include people who live in the abutting properties. They certainly didn't have an opportunity, or I didn't have an opportunity to vote, but that may be because I didn't see it. The other thing is, we were talking about stormwater. This is not something I had on my previous list. I didn't hear anything about the storm drain that we have going from our property to that property that was approved in 1967, from my understanding, although there are no records, and what was going to happen with that. I see the building with 5 levels, not 4, with structures on the top of the roof. That's disturbing and adds height to the building. We want to make sure that this project has dust remediation, that there's noise remediation, that it complies with all public noise laws. The geographic study should include what happens to the abutting structures, especially during construction, as when they took core samples, the building right next to where that is going, which is where I live, was shaking just from the equipment that was out there. So I want to make sure that there's sufficient insurance to cover the damage that we feel is pretty much inevitable to our buildings, which are built in 1967. We'd like to make sure that the laydown yard is in an area that is not in view or in disturbing our property. Laydown yard meaning putting their large materials to be stored while the project is going on. The other problem we had with all the construction in the area, and this being the largest, is parking for the workers that will be on the project, instead of being all over the streets and blocking most streets to one lane. That there in my business, we always had a parking area and then a bus to transfer workers to and from the job site.
Harold, if I could interrupt you, and you'll get back some of your time while I'm talking.
Okay.
I just want to make so you're not frustrated. You know, what the task of the DRC is to review the application that's before us in terms of the land use code that the city of Lake Oswego has. It's just sort of land use code. Things like, you know, the parking laws and the, you know, the means and methods of construction are handled by other elements of city management. And
Okay.
so we're just trying to refine ourselves at just the code here, just so you know that.
Okay, so you would be more concerned that there's actually 5 levels instead of 4?
Yes, that's valid. If there's a height limitation problem and that's not correct per the code, we'd be very interested in hearing your perspective on that.
Okay, and 4 stories is the limit regardless of height. Is that not correct?
No, I don't think that's correct. But you can, Evan, can you, I think it's just the height limitation of 60 feet is what we're looking at. And
There's 2 different parts. So there's an overall maximum height of 60 feet, but the DRD also limits to 4 stories.
Oh.
And the parking level is not a story. It doesn't meet the definition of a story. And that's what I put in my memo today.
Right.
And the structures on top of the roof, that the mechanical room and the other amenity rooms?
The roof is not, the structures on top of this are not a story either.
Yeah, so people could live up there and it'd be okay?
Mr. Evan Boone here. You're to present testimony relative to the criteria. It's not, this is not a question and answer time for commission or the staff. we've outlined what we think the criteria is applies, but they filed their application, so we need to receive your testimony. Any questions to staff and any response to the staff in this, should they choose to respond, is counted within your time limit.
Okay, well, no one responded to that, so. And the other thing is on the geo report, everything you're saying about it hasn't been a slide, or there was a slide issue, but one hasn't happened or something to that effect. There is ground cover over all of that until recently, like a week ago. And I think that that makes quite a difference on whether there's slide potential or not, as they clear all the jungle that is currently there. And I would like to see that that would be considered when they do their geo report, the difference between having ground cover and what will be when there's no ground cover on those slopes.
Okay, is that it? Is that, are you finished, Harold?
Is my time up?
I don't know.
You have 2 minutes and 40 seconds left.
Oh my, I speak quick. The other question I would have that I don't know if I can get an answer, if I can speak directly to the applicant, is whether or not the car wash remains or whether it goes away. Can anybody answer that?
Looking for testimony, correct?
Yeah, we're just looking for testimony. That's all.
Well, you put forth the thing about the testimony that wasn't clear in your notices, that everything has to be as if I'm an attorney and I understand and know all the local laws, and that's kind of not fair for people who just have to live here. So that is a comment that we thought that the commissioners and the people who do the approval could help us and answer these questions. But I guess that's not the case. So I will relinquish the rest of my time to the next person who speaks in opposition.
Okay, thank you, Harold. Unless anybody else has questions for Harold. Okay.
Well, let me just be clear on that. You cannot cede, a part of your time. This is not like Congress where you cede 45 seconds to, distinguished gentleman, so-and-so. You can cede your 5 minutes, or you can take all or part of your 5 minutes. So the next speaker would have 5 minutes.
Oh, that wasn't made clear either. Okay.
As I said, the party can cede their 5 minutes. They can't. When I read this rules of the procedures, a party may cede their time. Their time is the 5 minutes.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
Okay, you bet.
I see that we have Miranda Chang, I think, is turned off her mute sign. Miranda, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. How do I turn on the sign?
You can there's a little video button on your screen, or you can just start speaking.
Can you hear me? Oh,
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, yeah, I totally agree with the.
We get an address for the record before you start your time.
I'm the owner of the D Avenue. We call Sawtooth because it's like the shape of the shark teeth. So 31, 33, 35, and 37 D Avenue, and 41, 43, 45, and 47 D Avenue. Yes, yeah, it just like, I don't know, I don't personally reside on the property. It's all 8-unit individual rental space. And on June 2nd, and they text me and they videotaping me, telling me all of a sudden there's heavy equipment show up on the side without notice. And they were in front of our lot, and it was just 2 heavy equipment, and nobody informed us. And this is a very bad situation. And of course, this first edition neighborhood so-called, they're far. We are just next to the construction zone that will be coming, and we don't know what to expect. This is the thing, and the height is 60 feet. That is not including the chimney. So I'm telling you, not only our view is going to be wiped out, and also those condo community, the view will be wiped out. So if this meeting is talking about the height, I don't know. And also, this is a very steep slope. And I truly believe that the vice chairman, is a geotechnical or report is very, very important. And also the land use, there's two sellers involved, not only the caddy, and there's a 4,000 square feet lot next to it. That belong to the different sellers. So it is very, I don't know. Just for us, it's lack of clarity. And I was not invited or notified to this board meeting as that Mr. Harold Pakula, I was not. And until my tenant and reminded me that is on the agenda, then that's why I'm not invited. You know, our name were given in those initial neighborhood meeting. Why we're not invited? Just very peculiar. So all in all, I just don't think it's yeah, we need more understanding of this project. Yes, of course, this lady that is in the first edition, we for it. And if you ask her, where is your property? She'll say, I'm on D and the third or fourth. And we're on the state. We're on D. We're in between the state and the first. So if you're a few blocks away, of course you'd be happy. You'll be happy because your property value will increase. But what about us? What about us? This rental and this the two condo community, and none of them are participating. Maybe none of them know what's going on, and so it is just not fair. Okay. I'm speaking my term, and I'm not an engineer. I'm not a builder. I'm just a apartment owner, and I have no credential. That's it. But this is just my anger, and you know, and the anger is from my residents. I'm out there is in the service business, okay, hospitality business, okay. That's it.
Miranda, can you give us your address of where you do live?
I live in Kirkland, Washington.
Oh, okay. And just say what I already said. We're here to just review this application against the laws that are written in the land use code that the city has. The commissioner's not here to make up things or make decisions that they think is right or wrong. We really just try to interpret what the code says.
Okay, thank you. But whatever you're moving forward, everything has to, so there's several layers coming up, but I'm just saying, yeah, yes, of course, it will add value to the first edition. Remote area, but not instant. We're on the spot, you know, so.
Thank you for your testimony.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? No.
Can I ask a question just about this process really quick? Sorry. I'm new to all this too. I also live at the Oswego Talisman at 750 First Street. I submitted a written testimony, but I'm just wondering, I know you're saying you're only here to review the code. Is there somebody else that's going to review this, that's not just going to review about the code, but will actually care about the people that are going to have to live next to all of this? Or do we only just care about the law and we don't care about the residents that have to deal with this construction site?
Well, I'm sure, you know, I don't want to put thoughts in other people's mind about who cares and who does not, but I just know that we are concerned about whether or not the application meets the land use development code.
I got that, but is there going to be a meeting with another committee that has to approve this, that is going to actually listen to our concerns that aren't necessarily code related, but are more about, you know, right?
You can take the decision of the Development Review Commission and you can appeal that to City Council.
And is City Council going to care about anything besides code? Or are they going to talk about the code too?
You see, this is all part of a land use approval process, and it's a legal process. And everybody has you know, we're all trying to just follow the law.
Okay, so we don't care about people. Got it.
Well, okay. Alex, you are on the list, and you've got 5 minutes, so you can give your presentation or your testimony tonight if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with the law. It has to do with the experience of having to live next to this construction site and the impacts it's going to have about the people that live next door to it.
Can
So
you state his address first, and then we'll start his time, just so we have context.
Okay, 750 First Street, number 17.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is just what I submitted for the written testimony, but I'll read it, I guess. So this is from myself and also Colvin Hurt, my partner, who lives with me. So, sorry, I wasn't prepared to read this. So for many people, 2020 was one of the worst years of their lives. The pandemic completely upended everyone's routines, jobs, social lives, and literally every aspect of existence. Even for those of us that stayed healthy and didn't lose any close friends or family, it was a trying time that felt like it lasted an eternity. For us, though, 2020 was an absolute breeze compared to 2018. That year, we were forced to move from our home of 13 years on short notice and ended up in a rental that seemed very promising. It was cute, and up until we moved in, the landlords seemed like honest people. But on moving day, they dropped a bomb on us. Oh, we just found out that they're tearing down the house next door and putting in a 12-unit apartment building. We later found out that they had known beforehand and just chosen not to disclose this information throughout our entire rental process. We didn't know what that meant, but given that the lot line was less than 10 feet from our living room and bedroom, we knew it wasn't going to be great. However, we had no idea just how bad things could and would get. We're not trying to be dramatic when we say that it is a miracle that we are even here to tell this tale, because both of us spent much of 2018 contemplating suicide due to how horrible it was to live next to this site. We would actually have loved to give in this, oh, sorry, I was saying I would like to give it as oral, but I was afraid I would be too emotional, which I'm shaking right now because this is really difficult to talk about. Do you enjoy sleeping in? Well, you can't sleep in when hammering and sawing and wood chopping and bulldozing starts at 7 a.m. And that's if you're lucky and they're actually following the noise ordinance rules. Most mornings they started between 6 and 6:45. Do you enjoy having windows open when the weather is nice? Well, you can't open your windows when there's constant noise and dust for 73 hours a week, which is the number of hours it's permissible to do construction in Lake Oswego. Do you work from home? Because both of us do, but good luck getting anything done with constant noise and your house shaking. I hope you don't get fired from having low productivity, and save some of that money for a therapist to help you with depression and anxiety from having to live with all this for 1 to 2 years. We are both diagnosed with PTSD from the trauma of living next to this site. If you have health issues, good luck ever getting any rest, and say goodbye to your air quality. On top of all these issues, we had to deal with aggressive construction workers that made homophobic comments and filmed us in our home, a rat infestation from the food debris left from the construction crew, garbage and debris in our yard, and I was almost gravely injured standing in my driveway watering my garden when a chunk of metal came flying at me and landed literally 2 to 3 inches away. The developers for this project are claiming that they want to be good neighbors, but as you can see, a construction site is not a neighborly situation. They're claiming it's temporary, which it is, but if you think about how long the pandemic has been going on, that's also temporary, yet everyone is clearly suffering and experiencing severe negative impacts to their mental health and wellness from the stress and disruption to their lives. We do not support people coming into the neighborhood and voluntarily subjecting us to another 1 or 2 years of this amount of stress and disruption, especially considering that we're going to see only detriments, not benefits from this project. They're going to make literally millions of dollars while our homes at the Talisman will decrease in value due to the loss of our wonderful scenic views. We will lose joy and happiness of getting to look out over the mountains, nature, and the town. We'll lose hope because our homes are no longer lovely and only will be looking into the windows of the building that still our views with a noisy patio as our soundtrack. The developers claim that you can only see these views by a helicopter, but we see them just fine out of the windows of our homes that have been here since the 1960s. They're stealing the views from us so they can have the condos with the views instead to draw in buyers and charge a higher rate for their units. Moreover, most of the people in the building at the Talisman that we most affected are senior citizens as old as 78 years old that have been living here for 15 to 22 years. It's going to affect them the worst, not just because of their proximity to the proposed construction site, but because they're already more fragile and susceptible to health issues from high stress situations. We also have several families with young children that live here that probably don't want to live next to a noisy safety hazard. So I'm asking that you consider us at the Talisman, our neighbors at the Sawtooth and other nearby residences as you make this decision. We just want to live peaceful lives and enjoy being citizens of this beautiful city of Lake Oswego as we have been. And if you do approve the project, we would really, really like to suggest that you decrease the height of the building to 2 stories instead of 4 so that it doesn't block the views of the existing buildings. That you refrain from building or altering anything on the property that's being currently used and maintained by the Talisman, which is up at the top of the hill. We maintain this property the entire time these condos have existed, which is like 50 or 60 years, despite the lot line making this area technically not our property. This would give a small buffer space between the building at the end of the building at the end of the Talisman property and the new project, so the people there, including these senior citizens, can a little further from the dust, noise, garbage, and so forth. And we also would like well, I guess that doesn't have anything to do with you. Okay, well, anyway, that's all. Thank you.
Dave, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Next up, I have Lana Vance. Lana, are you here? Please be here. I don't see, oh, there's Lana. Lana, you're on mute if you're listening.
Hello.
Good. Hello, Lana. Can you give us your name and address?
I live at the Talisman Timberlane Apartments on First and D. I would be directly across the street from this new unit going in.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I guess, yeah. And this is my first time attending. I just came to see what was going on. I really don't have, as long as it's not, the landslide thing would concern me, but as long as you've got the appropriate people doing all of the surveying and, prevention problems, like I said, I just came to see what was just, I just heard about it and saw your sign up there and decided to come take a look. So I really am not educated in any of these areas to be, in the planning stage areas. I'm just a retired senior citizen, loving Lake Oswego, living here. So that's about it, I guess.
Well, we like hearing your testimony anyway.
Oh, okay. You seem to be conducting your meeting very nicely. You all seem to be on key about this, on the same subject, and right in touch with what's happening. I think that's neat. It's like I said, this is the first time I've been to a meeting, and I'm not in opposition to anything. Safety and preservation of wildlife and humanity and I hope we don't lose our views. I have a marvelous view. I'm on the, let's see, the east side. My balcony is on the east side of the building. So I get the sunrise every morning with this magnificent view of the Willamette River. I don't think this is going to affect me much in any way. It's not going to affect our building because we're across the street from it. But I think it's, yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it's very interesting. That's how this whole procedure, comes about from start to finish. I guess that's it.
It's okay.
I'm very unknowledgeable in this area, so it's I can feel for the last person who was speaking about the noise level and the dust level and all of that. There's been some problems with the apartment that's above it right now, Miss Chang's units. That's right above where you're going to be built or where they're going to be building. With people parking in the alleys, blocking the cars, we couldn't get out of the drive, get out of our parking spaces in the alley down here. The construction of D Street, the only thing about that reconstruction of the D Street that we did, I'm wondering why they planted all those plants and they let them die. I've planted over 500 flower seeds, flower plants and things in our little tiny area by the telephone pole, and they pull them out. I put marigolds in, they pull them out. I put all kinds. I planted them myself. It's just we walk by that going down to the parking spaces, and I thought would be cute to have some flowers. You've got 2 sprinklers there. They don't sprinkle, and everything dies. They put in tulips, they died. I put in marigolds, I put in a beautiful, what do you call it? I can't think of it. It's a climbing vine. It will go up the telephone pole and wrap, on the lower parts of it and hang down and have flowers hanging. If you are ever in the alley in the back area, you look up, you'll see I've got hummingbird feeders, bird feeders, and I have branches attached to my balcony and for the birds to sit on and come and feed. I like the wildlife. I love Oregon. I moved here from California and I've been here about 15, 16 years going, 2004. And there isn't anywhere else I'd want to live. And I don't want to leave Lake Oswego. I love it here. I do.
Thank you, Lana. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Now, that's all I have on my list. I'll go back though and see if Chris and Karen Rocky, ROCKE, are back with us or.
Hello. I do want to say something. Lana's view will be blocked for sure. Yeah.
Who's speaking?
Miranda, we have to move on to other people giving testimony. Your time has expired.
Okay, fine.
All right. I see Chris Rocky is here. Chris, do you want to say something? You're on mute. I'm just seeing if you're still there or just. No. All right, and then let's try again, Deborah Grothe, or Growth, or Grothe. Deborah? Okay. Kat, has anybody emailed you that wants to testify?
No, I have not received any additional emails.
Okay. All right.
I just sent one.
I'm sorry?
I sent one to Kat.
Oh, you did? And this is, and John, is this John Pinson?
Yes.
Are you speaking in favor of the proposal or against, or neither for nor against?
Against.
Okay, then this is a good time for you.
All right, let's take a run at it here. I'm concerned about the first of all, I'm concerned about
Oh, yes.
Don Pinson, 751st Street. Unit 13. I'm concerned that, you know, probably 70% of our residents here at the Talisman are over 70. And even, you know, you've got members of the commission that is having trouble with the technology. And I think that this thing needs to be carried over where these people come in live and really get their questions answered and see what's going on, because they're really excluded from the process. So I would ask you to take it under consideration. I'm concerned that the east property line has not been clearly defined. I'm concerned about root disruption on the major fir tree immediately adjacent to the northeast corner of that new lot line, and the retainage that's in there, and it's probably impervious surface, but when you've got a fir tree that big, if you do any root disruption within 5 or 6 feet, you've got a big problem. The locust tree, which I believe is number 3 on the arborist report, it looks to me like it sets right across our property lines. And when they came in to do the geotech stuff, they scooped right up to the trunk and through the whole root system. So I'm concerned about how that was done. I'm concerned about the geotech report and it being complete on things. I'm very concerned that they've identified a roof facility, and it appears from the west view, or from the east view, excuse me, that you can kind of, it looks like there's something in the center of the roof line there that may be the access to that facility. But from the east perspective, our perspective at the Talismans, there's nothing denoted, and there's nothing denoted in any of the staff report or any of the information supplied about whether there's a structure on the top up there and where that deck is going to be. Because obviously, it's one thing to have a roof line at 60 feet. It's another thing to have a roof line at 60 feet and have people on top of it. I'm concerned about the perpendicular nature of the chimneys, which are really monoliths and are going to create tremendous view blockage in addition to the already exceeding height. It appears that the property furthest to the north from the drawings that were submitted, and again, this hasn't been clarified, it looks like there are 3 stories, in which case, if you follow them south, it appears there are 2 stories that go above that. So that would make that 5 stories. And my understanding in my conversation with Evan is that there is a 4-story limitation on the structure, not counting the parking structure. Is that correct, Evan?
Evan, you're muted.
There is a maximum story, 4 stories in the DRD. That is correct.
And is the northmost unit, is that in fact 3 stories? Because the drawing shows that it's 3 stories.
That section of the building is 3 stories. It's also located in the R0 zone, which has a different limitation. It doesn't have that same limitation, but that is
Right.
3 stories. It's the ground floor of that portion of the building is exposed compared to the parking level, which is not. That's the difference there.
Well, it's a continuous structure, and even though it crosses over zones, the overall number of stories permitted should include that, and which makes it a 5-story structure. If I can get any clarification on whether in fact the east property line has been defined, surveyed, we know what that is. I'd like to know that.
You're just giving a testimony tonight, John. We're not.
Well, earlier you said that if we asked questions, it would be deducted from our time.
Well, if the commission asks you questions after your testimony, then that would not be. That would not be part of your time.
Well, that wasn't clear. Evan is in fact the 36.5 height on the westerly side of the building. Is that what your calculation was after we talked?
Well, we talked about that it was somewhere around there. It's difficult to see on the plans. The third story portion of the building that's in the R0 zone, that's 35 feet. So the flat roof, that from the east side is 35 feet.
Okay, but on the west side, you said it was 36.5 for the other structure?
Somewhere around there. Yes, when the grade goes up towards the north. Yes, that's probably about right.
Well, it's important that we have answers to those before you proceed. And again, and I'm also concerned that none of the commissioners have even looked at the site. You know, the impact here is pretty dramatic. You're putting a monolith in, and it would seem a continuance both to allow our seniors to participate live and a continuance to give commissioners time to drive 2 blocks from City Hall, 3 blocks, and take a look at this thing. So that concludes my comments for this evening.
All right, and by that, Mr. Pinson, I'm taking your comment to be a request for continuance.
That's correct.
To the process, right?
That's correct.
Which would be a continuance to provide additional evidence relative to the criteria and standards.
I don't know what that means.
It is not necessarily, the commissioners don't have to go to the site. Actually, I don't encourage commissioners to go to the site because that's evidence that's not in the record. So
that's fine.
Anybody who wants to put evidence to record can submit photographs that make their point.
Well, it still remains that clarification of the east property line and of the tree issue on the west property line and the other issues raised are not clear, are not answered.
All right, you've asked for continuance, and so so that shall be what it is. All right. At this point, Mr. Chair, is there any other testimony before we go to the applicant's rebuttal?
No, I do not have anything else.
Okay. Then we would go to the applicant's rebuttal. There's nobody, neither for nor against. We'll go to the applicant's rebuttal of the oral testimony at this point. And then the commission will need to consider how the manner of continuance shall be held.
Right.
Okay. So the applicant has 5 minutes for the rebuttal.
Okay. Well, we heard a number of things. Certainly, we are all sensitive to impacts with infill development. But I will try to address those that are germane to the criteria and standards that we're reviewing today. First of all, the height and story is something that we've clearly depicted in our plan set about recognizing the definition of story as it relates to parking. And also the fact that we have a third story in our R0 portion of the site does not mean that we have 5 stories on the other portion of the site. Like Evan alluded to, there's a different measurement there, and we've included all of that information in our application. In terms of the geotech report, my understanding is that we have done additional drilling, and that information is going to be included in a revised report that we've drilled up to 60 to 70 feet deep as part of this. And that revised report will be available within 2 to 3 weeks. So that should satisfy those concerns about geotech. Running through the list here. There's construction ordinances that limit number of hours, noise, dust, odor, etc., that the applicant will adhere to as part of construction. The application included a stormwater report and also utility plans that covered stormwater, including the storm line that is part of the adjacent property, and addressed that as well. Let's see, I'm just trying to find pieces that are actually germane to your decision. I've got a little bit of time, so Michael, I don't know if you had any other additional items that you wanted to address as part of our rebuttal.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Kevin. Good evening. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good, thanks. Good evening, Vice Chair Paulson, members of the commission. My name is Michael Robinson. My last name is spelled Robinson. My mailing address is 1211 Southwest Fifth Avenue, Suite 1900, Portland, Oregon 97204. I'm here on behalf of applicant. I'm a land use attorney with the law firm of Schwabe, Williamson and Wyatt. I think Kevin did a good job of summarizing the issues that were raised tonight and explaining why the application has substantial evidence addressing those relevant approval criteria. And as the chair observed a couple of times tonight, the commission's task is to look at the relevant approval criteria and determine whether the applicant's met its burden of proof by submitting substantial evidence. Kevin ticked off the issues that have been raised tonight, and if you look at various places in the staff report, staff does a good job of explaining both why the approval criteria are met and the source of the substantial evidence demonstrating how the applicant has met its burden. I don't think I'll add anything else to the substantive issues tonight. I think we'll be able to do that at the continued hearing. I would like an opportunity to comment on behalf of the applicant, Vice Chair Paulson, about what your continuance may be. I think our preference would be just to continue it to the next hearing as opposed to having an open record period. That's all I have. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
All right.
Can I ask one quick question that's not really relevant to the construction or not construction? I just wondered, he said he addressed.
Mr. Chairman, the opportunity, well, I'll let the commission and the city attorney handle that, but the opportunity for public testimony is over. And if folks want to talk, I think they'll have the opportunity. They'll have the opportunity at the next hearing.
This is not testimony. I just want to know where I can find this storm sewer proposal that's been submitted.
You can call the city, Harold.
Okay, so you do have it.
Okay.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Evan, can we address the request for continuance? I have some questions about that.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So since the request for continuance has been made under the statute and the code, a continuance shall be granted. The public hearing will be either continued to a date certain, not less than 7 days later, or the record shall remain open for at least 7 days after the hearing to enable additional written evidence or testimony to be submitted, and the commission shall establish the period for any rebuttal written evidence to be submitted. So having received that, the commission's question to be decided is whether or not the continuance should be to continue the public hearing, in which case we would receive additional oral and written testimony at the next commission hearing, or whether the hearing should be closed for oral testimony and only written materials received. And if that is the case, we have 7 days required to provide for written evidence, which would be next Monday at 5 o'clock, close of business. And then the rebuttal time for that new evidence that's submitted, that new written evidence that's submitted, would need to be provided typically then 2 days after that occurs. So Wednesday, close of business, in order to provide staff review and memorandum to the commission in anticipation of the Monday following commission meeting, which would then deliberate based upon the additional written evidence that's been received and the rebuttal written evidence. So that's the two options for the commission. You had a question, Mr. Chair, if I can elucidate, I'd be happy to.
Yes, you know, I may be going out on a limb, but I have a feeling that the some of the, well, in this case, it was John Pinson who requested the continuance, may not have understood what that meant, you know, and the details that you said that it was the submittal of additional evidence or rebutting evidence that's been already submitted. And you know, I want to make sure that that person is clear, that John is clear on that, because if he, you know, we could go ahead with our deliberations tonight if he wanted to withdraw that. Otherwise, if he has intentions to submit that evidence, then that's, you know, you're right, we are compelled to grant the continuance.
Right, so
That doesn't address the unique situation we've got about this being a virtual meeting and the exclusion that that's created for our senior population. How does the commission take that under advisement?
Well, that's not part of what we're here to discuss. That's not part of this public hearing for this proposal. We're just interested in this proposal as it relates to the land use code. And if you'd like to submit additional evidence to support your opposition to the proposal, then we will grant that, your request to do that. Otherwise, you can withdraw your request for continuance and we can proceed with deliberations.
Well, we've got the chance to go to city council after this and provide potential additional support for it.
let me be clear on that point.
Yeah.
The record is the record as developed here at the DRC. No new evidence will be permitted before the city council. That's not considered before the DRC. So any additional evidence that you wish the decision makers to make here at the DRC, and if on appeal to the council, should be submitted into the record to the DRC.
And by continuing it, you would be allowed to submit additional testimony, but that would be the last time you could submit new evidence. If it gets appealed to the city council, that is heard on the record, which means that no new evidence can be submitted at the council hearing. So if you want to submit new additional evidence, now's the time.
It would have to be submitted by Monday.
By a week next Monday, that'd be 7 days. So it would be on the 14th, this being the 7th. And the hearing would be continued to the 21st. Now that's if it's written testimony. The commission has to decide whether to submit written evidence only. And that would be the 7 day, usually the commission has to set the dates, I don't. So usually it's the 14th and then the 16th. Or the commission can decide just to continue it for additional written and oral testimony to the 21st.
That's what I'd request, is written or oral testimony to the 21st.
All right, Mr. Chair, that's it. It's a decision for the commission. It's not a position for you to take. So I would ask the commission members. He's not withdrawing his request. So that was your question, Mr. Polson.
Right.
So now the commission needs to make that decision whether to written evidence only or additional oral and written evidence at the next hearing.
Mike, I see you have a question.
I did. May I speak, Chair Paulson?
Yes.
I was hoping, and I apologize that Mr. Boone went by it so quickly. Before the commission decides on which option they like, and Evan correctly said you can either continue the public hearing, leave the record open, take new oral testimony, and then you would close that public hearing and deliberate, or you can have an open record period. That means no one talks to the commission live again. I was hoping Mr. Boone would just go over those two dates. If you continue the public hearing, would it be 14 days to the next hearing, which would be June 21st? Is that right?
Well, it would be to the next, yes, our next hearing, our next commission meeting date is June 21st.
Okay. And
so we have to wrap it up June 21st, unless the applicant wants to extend further in extending the 120-day time.
Well, I think you've got plenty of time. The staff did such a great job of deeming the application complete, but we could talk about that, Evan. But I was just trying to get the two dates. So if the commission elects to continue the public hearing, not just leave the written record open, it would be continued to the 21st of June. Is that correct?
That's correct. And
thank you.
So,
and then,
yes.
And then, I'm sorry,
Mr.
Boone,
it's the commission's decision, it's not mine. So I'm speaking now to the commission. The usual term, the usual timing on this is we continue for 2 days because we do have to make a decision within the 120-day clock, which requires additional time for the council to reserve for it. And so usually the time set for receipt of new evidence from anyone would be 1 week. We have to provide a minimum of 7 days under the statute. So that's 1 week. So that's June 14 at 5 o'clock, close of business. And then the rebuttal time the commission needs to set, and that's usually two additional days, which would be June 16, close of business. That provides the commission, the staff, 2 days to get a memo together to analyze what new evidence and rebuttal evidence was received for your meeting on the following Monday, the 21st.
So, Mr. Polson, I'm sorry, may I just say one other thing, please? Just to be clear. Thank you. So the 2-day rebuttal, that's a second evidentiary period. There's still an applicant opportunity for final written argument, which we have not waived yet, and I do not know if we would waive it. And under either scenario, you would potentially deliberate to a tentative decision at the meeting on the 21st, and then you still have to come back and adopt findings. And I completely agree with Evan. It's the commission's choice under state law which to do. Our preference is, if you wish to do so, just continue the public hearing until the 21st. You can make a tentative decision then if you wish, and then you would come back 2 weeks later and adopt the final decision. That's all I had to say. I just wanted to clarify what the dates were. Thank you, Evan, and thank you, Mr. Polson.
Thank you. I understand. So the rest of the commission, can we go forward now, Evan, and have a
go ahead. Yes, go ahead and have your motion and discuss which avenue you wish to take.
Okay. Anybody have any thoughts on whether or not we want written only or oral or written? Kirk, Mr. Smith?
Kirk's fine. Commissioner Smith. No, I'm kidding. I think based on what I've heard tonight, I think we should just continue it to the 21st. Allow the community and the people who may not be able to deal with these wonderful Zoom calls, and just continue it. And if anybody wants to come and speak, then I'd be happy to hear their testimony on this key project for the community.
I would second that.
So you also would want to have oral testimony, since some people seem to have difficulty tonight giving their oral testimony, give them another chance.
What I think, to Commissioner Smith's point, is what it'll allow for is individuals to put their thoughts together, directed based off of what you said earlier, specific to Alex and some of the others that spoke. They can put their thoughts, they can put their concerns specific to this development, and take some of the emotion out and still allow for humanity and be able to mix it in there. So, listening to that piece of it, I have no problem with that.
Okay, so anybody else want any discussion? Or I've heard a motion and a second. No other?
Chair, I got a question. Yeah, I'm right where our two commissioners just mentioned. And also I heard something about a drilling report coming in 2 or 3 weeks, and I don't know when that was brought up. I don't know if that was going to bring new news or something different, but I definitely want to believe we should let these people have a chance to get their thoughts together, as Commissioner Frankel mentioned.
Well, I think we'll have an opportunity in the next hearing to discuss any findings they have, any additional geotechnical findings they have. So that's another good reason to allow further oral testimony.
Mr. Chairman, in the event that report is not ready to be presented at the June 21st meeting, what then would we do?
The question is, I'm going to, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
Yeah. The question is whether the application as presented with all evidence before you meets the criteria, obviously.
Right.
Then the question is that report necessary in order to meet the criteria? It may be that the applicant is offering, is going to be needing that report for the final, final approval of the building permit stage. Okay. That may be the reason why they're getting this report, and it's not necessary. They may feel it's not necessary to get it for the DRC approval. Okay, so
Let me, you know,
that actually answers my question.
it's up to the applicant to decide what evidence they want to submit in order to determine whether they meet the standards and criteria. It's not to the commission to delay. It's to, saying, well, we think you should. Ultimately, they're in charge of the clock. The applicant is, and so if they choose not to submit material that the commission finds necessary, then you would end up denying.
You know, and I'd like to explain a little bit, because I run into this problem a lot, because I can't help the fact that I'm an engineer. And what I look to is that if for some reason some new engineering criteria were to substantially change the project, I'd like to know about that before we deliberate on it. But it is also true that if some engineering criteria substantially change the project, that it would be so different that they'd have to go through another land use process, if you follow what I'm saying. So there's a little fine line there on, how much of the engineering criteria is going to be applicable to our decision as part of a land use decision. So I hope I didn't confuse you on that.
Thank you.
Okay.
The other thing, Chair, was I thought there was you as the engineer on the commission, there was a question as to whether or not it was a report by a licensed engineering geologist or the geotech report, what those technicalities that I don't understand as a mere lawyer. Maybe we would be able to figure that out in the next couple of weeks on what exactly is required and what reports and how they have to drill and all the things that you understand, but I don't. So
yeah, well, I'm going to deal with that in the next couple of weeks, but I don't think that's part of the the evidence that we're looking at that's necessary to approve this proposal.
But we could at least get the clarification on what report is supposed to be submitted.
Yes.
To criteria versus whether or not they have a supplementary report or 60 feet, or I get all that.
I think Evan read the criteria that was in the code. I just read what was in the staff report, and maybe my memory is getting a little foggy, but I'm pretty certain that the words geologic engineer were there, or engineering geologist, excuse me.
Yeah,
and,
it's on page 35. It says a licensed engineering geologist certifies, is what it says. Maybe that's what you're thinking.
Licensed engineering geologist.
Unless the licensed engineering geologist certifies, that's what it says.
Mr. Chair, I think we're moving into deliberation on what the criteria is. I'd suggest we just decide the motion, and then the applicant will decide what to submit relative to that, and then you can decide what the criteria requires once you have all the evidence before you.
Thank you for that discipline,
okay.
Attorney. So does anybody have a motion? Again, Kirk, can you restate your motion that for the continuance and whether or not be oral or written testimony?
Well, I will, but I was just curious what Commissioner Arthur thought about it. I don't know if we heard from him. But
Oh, thank you. I would have been content with receiving written testimony only. The point was made by Mr. Ponson that some people were challenged by technology and some people would have preferred to be in person, but it seems like everyone could take the time in the next 7 days to write additional testimony if they had anything to offer. And that might be as meaningful as a public hearing, but I do support and will vote in favor of the public hearing and leaving it open until the 21st.
okay, thank you. So, Chair, I hereby move that we continue the hearing to the 2 weeks to the next meeting of the DRC in order to allow the members of the public to come and give oral testimony or any other information to the commission for our deliberation on the 21st.
Second.
And it's been seconded by Commissioner Frankel.
Correct.
Okay. Everybody clear? Okay, Kat, can you call the roll?
Wilson,
Yes.
Berardi,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Frankel,
Yes.
Stylen,
Yes.
Arthur.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Chair, was that passed, Cat? 7-0, 6-0?
6-0, yes.
Okay. All right, so what that means, just for the record here, the hearing is continued until June 21 at 7 p.m. Any person may submit additional written materials between now and June 21st and on the 21st to the commission, and any person may testify to the commission on the 21st. The hearing process, the procedure will be the same as tonight. The applicant will have 20 minutes to present any additional testimony and evidence they wish to do so, and then parties will have 5 minutes / 10 minutes, depending upon whether individuals or organizations, to submit testimony at that hearing. So we're going to go through the same procedural process as we did tonight, except there is no additional opportunity for continuance at that time.
Thank you. So thanks everyone for attending for this public hearing. If you have any questions, call the city for submittal of written or attending our next DRC meeting for oral testimony. I don't think we have anything else under the on the agenda. Is there anything else? Jessica, is there anything else that you have to go over?
Normal schedule update if you're ready for that.
I believe we are.
Okay. I wanted to let you know that for the hearing on the 21st, we did originally have a Southwest Employment or Southwest Overlay District application for a new multi-tenant commercial building. That applicant has requested yet another continuance to July 7th, and which was granted by the chair. They have said that's the last continuance they expect to request. The basic background is they're waiting to close on another building, and they want that to happen before they have the public hearing for their own reasons. But anyway, the chair did grant that continuance. So we will not have that item on the 21st. The only item on the 21st that we will have will be this continued hearing. And as I've mentioned before, that is going to be our first in-person hearing. So we will not have a Zoom meeting on that date. There will not be a Zoom meeting option for people to participate. So if they want to participate in the hearing, they will either need to submit written testimony ahead of the hearing, or they will need to come to City Hall, the new City Hall, and testify in person at the hearing. We will have safety protocols in place, and just depends on if things change. And so we'll keep you posted in terms of what the COVID protocols are going to be. We do have, as I mentioned, an item on July 7th. And note that that is a Wednesday, because the Monday is 4th of July observed. So we will not be meeting on the 5th. We'll be meeting on the 7th instead, which is a Wednesday. Those are the only upcoming DRC meetings that I have any items scheduled at this point. And like I said, I will certainly keep you posted if any other hearings are forthcoming.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. Anybody else, anything for the good of the order, or can I adjourn the meeting? So adjourned.
Thank you.
Right.
Right. Bye, everyone. See you live and in person.
Yay. That was like fun.